This is Wrestling with Sales. Today, we are joined by one of the, I guess you could say, the modern day legends of Kansas City area professional wrestling. One half of the world's most dangerous tag team, the Holletts, Hoodie Howlett. Hoodie,
Hey,
thanks for joining us here.
thank you. Thank you. It's a great intro. I appreciate that. And thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, and I've been glad to be involved in helping sponsor Central States Wrestling in this version that's just really kicked off in the last year or two. Started off a little bit as the Dynamic Wrestling Federation, and now moving back in, taking that old name, Central States. But you've been around in the Kansas City market for a little while. I had a chance to talk with Chris Goff not that long ago about his podcast, The Worst Territory in the World, and
Yeah.
you were part of it when it was easily one of the best independent territories in the world back during the NWL days. What
Yeah.
brought you to Kansas City originally?
Yeah. So, I had been coming out here. I lived in Denver, and I had been coming out here for several years, just kind of wrestling for Chris Goff at Metro Pro Wrestling. And when the NWL kicked off, it was an opportunity for me to wrestle full time. So I came out here. I was one of I guess what you would call the hybrid employees of NWL, because
Hmm.
I also had a skill set in video editing. So I wrestled full time and I edited video for the television program that we produced full time. So I was very busy, but that's what brought me to KC originally.
Well, and hey, just to give people watching in other areas an idea, that was Metro Pro was a local independent territory that was running on. We at the time had a local sports station with Spectrum TV, Metro Sports, and then it became the NWL, the National Wrestling League, which was meant to be a basically a launch into a national wrestling company where you'd have essentially teams in different cities. Really, it only ever got to here in St. Louis, but it was a different deal because for most people in independent wrestling, they're trying to bounce from either they have a separate full-time job or they're wrestling in a different territory every couple days if they get a chance because you have to string together a lot of appearances to get a full-time job. This
Right.
was different. This was a full-time job with an owner, with a budget, housing, insurance. It had to seem like it wasn't even a real offer at the time.
Oh, for sure. When it was first explained to me what it was it was very unbelievable because I just had never heard of anything like that, especially on an independent level. And the talent that they were signing were all kind of what you would, I guess, consider no name talent. Like there wasn't like, big names that were signed up. It was all just kind of guys that were grinding on the indies and had
Hmm.
been doing a really good job, but just hadn't reached that like national exposure yet. And yeah, well, when we showed up, I'll never forget the first day I showed up to NWL was um, it was a couple days before my birthday, and we went to this downtown office, went to the top floor of this like really swanky building, and it was like walking into like Google headquarters or something. Like
Yeah.
all the walls were see through, and there was a conference room and like offices, and there was this really charming dude named Major Baisden that was kind of heading the whole thing, and it was very legit, very immediately. And yeah, it was hard to believe, but it was cool.
Well, and it did give you the opportunity because you've stayed in Kansas City the whole time.
Yeah, and I've said this before on even on Chris Goff's podcast. If I hadn't made that decision to move and to kind of take that risk, everything that I've done since then was because of that decision. I've had a lot of really great opportunities to do things both inside and outside of wrestling because of that one choice. So it was it was something that I always remember fondly, but it was definitely like one of the best decisions that I've ever made.
And your tag team partner, you guys have been together now for quite a while, which is also sort of unique in the independent wrestling world to have a regular tag team where you're not just roaming between territories.
Right.
How did you guys get together? And just to mention it here, we're coming up real quick. Saturday, June 24th, we'll see Central States Wrestling back. Coronation, the Tribe, you and Anaya and Coach Frost, you're taking on a couple of new opponents to Central States Wrestling, but you can still get tickets to see it at the National Guard Armory. It's right past Lenexa City Center, super easy to get to, right off the highway if you're in KC. So definitely encourage you to go. How did you end up getting together with Anaya?
Yeah. I think in the back of my mind, I've always kind of seen myself as a tag team wrestler, even before I was in a tag team. I don't know why, but I just have always been drawn to tag team wrestling. I just think it's a cool dynamic.
Hmm.
Um, so when I had been wrestling around in Colorado for a few years and not really finding my lane. I think I tried to do a couple different things and just hadn't really found like what I would consider my lane. Um, but Anaya started training at the school that I was training at, and we hit it off almost immediately. We just kind of saw that we were very similar, and we have a lot of different. Or we have a lot of similar interests. We have almost the exact same personality. Even to this day, we like do things at the same time. Like drink a we'll drink our Red Bulls at the exact same time and set them down at the exact same time. It's freaky how similar we are as people. So it just clicked, and um, we interestingly enough, we kind of come from the same background. Like we have a lot of similarities. So it just clicked. And as a team, we just clicked. Once we got into the ring, it was very apparent that like this is something that we can do. And we never, without really talking about it, we looked at it like something that we can build together. And that's what we've always kind of done is we've built this team together, and we've gone off and done individual things. Like he's an individual star at a promotion in in Denver called Lucha Libre and Laughs.
Hmm.
And I wrestled there too, but like he was the champion. He's been champion twice. He's their longest running champion. So he's an individual star there, but it's always really cool because we can always come back to the team. No matter like what happens, we can always kind of come back and do what I think we do better than anybody, which is being a tag team.
Well, we got to get you some Central States Wrestling Championship tag team belts too, right? You're
I'm
the
waiting for it.
uncrowned
Yeah.
champions right now. So how long have you guys been tagging? Is it well
Um,
over a decade, right?
not quite a decade.
Not quite? Okay.
He's only been wrestling for I think about 7 years, so
Oh,
right
okay.
around there. Yeah, we started teaming almost immediately when he was trained and ready to go. So just under a decade.
And I saw just recently you guys got your own store up on Pro Wrestling Tees, so you can
Yes.
hop over there. You can get some Tribe merchandise. And as we're going through, what's the Tribe? I know there's the Holletts tag team. There's Hoodie. There's Anaya, and then the Tribe is.
So the tribe kind of became this. I don't want to say like a movement, but it with for lack of a better word, I think the tribe is more of a movement. The tribe represents like our fans, our community. Um, it's it started with our kind of association with Coach Frass. Coach Frass runs a MMA slash jiu-jitsu slash Krav Maga gym here in Kansas City called Warriors Academy. And I've always had a really good relationship with Coach Frass. He's one of my best friends. And he wanted to kind of get into the realm of pro wrestling. He started actually as a sponsor at CSW,
Okay.
and his like core group of trainers and students are called the tribe. He's just always called them that.
Okay.
And so when we paired together with him and we started kind of noticing that like the audience at CSW was really responding to us in a positive way, even though we started at CSW or at DWF as heels, we started to just kind of feel this like groundswell almost like the fans were kind of they wanted the Howletts to kind of be at the forefront of CSW, and they really got behind us. So we just kind of started referring to them as the tribe. A tribe can be, it's not just about like where you come from, who you are, like what your race, what your gender, all of that like doesn't matter. If you're in the tribe, you're in the tribe, and that's kind of what it means to me, at least.
Yeah, so just bringing people together, and coming up at this next show, you're going to have a second generation member of your tribe hopping into
Yeah,
the ring. Is
yeah.
this Adam? Is this Adam's first match?
It is. It's
It
Adam's
is,
first
yeah.
match. Yeah, he's been training at the KC Pro Wrestling Academy, which is the school that we opened last year, and he's been training, and he's been busting his butt to get ready. So we're all very excited. I'm a little nervous. I'm sure he's a little nervous, but it's gonna be really cool to see him, take that step.
Well, and it's neat to see a wrestling school, because I think that's a big key to keeping an independent territory going. You have to keep bringing in that next generation and getting the people involved, and if nothing else, just having a place where everyone can work together. And you guys are building up a fairly
Yeah.
big crew. Who's involved in the KC Wrestling Academy now?
So the KC Pro Wrestling Academy has four coaches, I would say. So it's myself, Moonshine Mantell, Anaya, and Dak Draper. I'm sorry, and Luke Langley is also a coach.
Okay.
That was really important to me, to have like a bunch of different styles, a bunch of different mindsets coming into wrestling, as far as like a coaching perspective, because there's no really right way to do this. Like there's different styles, there's different athletic abilities, there's all these different types of people that can be successful in pro wrestling, and it's like flavors of ice cream. Whatever your flavor is, just go with that and make it the best that you possibly can. And so like having a diverse coaching staff was really important to me,
Hmm.
but also, you're right when you said that it's super important for a school to exist in a territory for wrestling to continue to thrive. And in a territory like Kansas City that has such a like rich history in pro wrestling, it's so important that there are like quality schools here that are really teaching people the ins and outs of how to do this. And it it's something that's been in the back of my mind forever, to kind of have my own school, and have a place where people, not just people that are brand new to pro wrestling, but people that have been in pro wrestling for a long time, or are just kind of within their first couple years. Um, KC Pro Wrestling Academy is kind of a catch-all for everybody. It's not. It's the tribalism of
Sure.
wrestling schools doesn't exist at my school. My doors are open to anybody that wants to come train, anybody that wants to kind of make themselves better. Um, yeah, that's kind of what we base everything on.
Yeah, just to have that sense of community and a little bit of a teamwork feel. And
Yeah,
you're always selling something. And just to take a quick break here and get a word in from our sponsors at Montway Auto Transport, because dealerships are always selling something. And as a dealer, you spend a lot of time buying cars at the auction. If you're using Edge Pipeline to manage your purchases, then this is big news. Championship news, you could say. Montway Auto Transport has partnered with Auction Edge to add a transportation option on Edge Pipeline. Now dealers can manage their auction buys and book transportation with just one click right in the Edge Pipeline platform. Simple and easy. And as a nationwide leader in auto transport, Montway understands a dealer's need for speed and efficiency, and can arrange single or multi vehicle moves from the auction to any lot in the country. With Montway's technology, dealers can gain full transit visibility and tracking after an order's been booked, making it much easier to manage inventory. Buy, ship, and track all in Edge Pipeline. Go to www.montway.com/WS to learn more, all in just one simple step. So, of course, dealerships a little bit different than wrestling, but you are always selling something.
absolutely.
And did you see yourself when you moved here initially with the NWL? Did you see yourself still wrestling at this point? Is
I'm one of those guys that kind of like I have a very I love pro wrestling. It will always be a part of my life, but this is a very hard business, and it's a very like mentally draining business. It can be very frustrating at times if you're not where you want to be, or I've had to learn over the years that you really have to fall in love with the hard times, because if you fall in love with the hard times, the good times are just kind of like icing on the cake, right? So um at NWL, I would say that I was in great times. I was
Hmm.
being paid to be a pro wrestler for a living. So in I think that um at NWL I kind of hoped and uh I hoped that that would continue and that my like star would continue to rise. I've had ebbs and flows since then, but I've always fallen in love with, and I've always been in love with the grind of this business. So like, and that was a learned trait. Like there can be times in this, and I think that I speak for probably every pro wrestler who's ever existed, where you just want to like throw your hands up and say, okay, I can't do this anymore. But
Sure.
if you have the ability to kind of get yourself through those times and understand that like this is the life that you chose, and this is what you were put on this earth to do, no matter if it's at a very large scale or at a very small scale. If this is your calling, this is what you should be doing. And the the quicker that I realized that, the easier it was for me to kind of get through those tough and difficult times. So that's
Well,
kind of a long
that's
answer, but
no, that's
yes,
great.
this is always what I've wanted to do. Yeah,
That's a great attitude to have with any job, right? Whatever you're
yeah,
in. Because you can look at anything and say, "Oh, man, this isn't fair. This isn't working out right. I'm not getting the breaks. It's easier for that person. I could
hmm
do better than them." But, at the end of the day, it does kind of come down to you. And I'm sure that's something that the coach goes over at his MMA school too, because man, if wrestling's hard, MMA is even harder.
yeah. I mean, it can be they're similar in the sense of like yeah, that like what you said, what the athlete goes through, that mental grind can be very very tough. But yeah, it's a learning process. I think that pro wrestling is interesting in the sense that you never are an expert at it. You can get really, really good at it, but even the guys that you would consider the best of all time, I think would tell you that you don't ever learn all there is to know about this ever. So the pursuit of that knowledge is what we're all here for. So um, even if you never reach that goal, which I don't think that you can reach that goal, the pursuit is the fun part.
Well, and something that has to feel good. And like I said, I've been happy to be involved and help sponsor the CSW shows for about the last 5 months. Just seeing the crowd reaction and the outpouring of support, even after the venue
Yeah.
was lost to a flood. This is the CSW zone, I guess you could say, at the Lenexa National Guard Armory, and it's been packed, and it's really a great atmosphere. It's got to feel good to walk out there and see a crowd, an organic crowd of local wrestling fans pulling you on.
Yeah. I mean, it really is just a testament to how great the fans are here. How like dedicated to pro wrestling fans are. Like it's kind of like a Field of Dreams situation. Like if you build it, they'll come. They'll come and support it because this art form is embedded in the history and the community in Kansas City. So if it's out here and you're giving people like a quality product, they're going to show up and they're going to show out. And that's how it's been at CSW, and it's been an amazing thing to be a part of.
Yeah, and again, coming up soon on Saturday the 24th, have the show Coronation. You guys will be a big part of it. You,
Yes.
Anaya, Coach Frass coming up at Coronation at the National Guard Armory in Lenexa, right past the city center, so super easy to get to from anywhere in the metro. Now, if people are watching this and they are interested in learning a bit more, where can they find out more about the KC Wrestling Academy?
You can find us at kcwrestlingacademy.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter. We have all that stuff. If you go to the website and you're interested in just learning a little bit more, basically my process is just meeting you. I just want to kind of talk to you and get an idea and a feel for what your goals are, and if we feel like that is in line with what our goals are as far as like building this community of wrestlers, then we move forward. And it's a great atmosphere. Like our students are I've been like kind of blown away by how dedicated and how just like willing to learn our students have been. I feel like when you open a wrestling school, like you're supposed to kind of go through growing pains, but so
Hmm.
far we're just enjoying like teaching these kids, and everybody's just kind of come together and to help out. I mean, pro wrestlers from all over the state have come, and we had Ace Steel come and be a part of like a seminar. We've had Brian Keith come through and do a seminar. I mean, it's just been a really like positive experience so far.
What kind of time commitment are you asking from people, or what kind of time commitment are people giving with the
So we
academy?
Yeah, we train 4 days a week. So the only times that we typically aren't open is on weekends because all of the coaches are active pro wrestlers. So we're
Sure,
usually out on bookings. But yeah, I mean everybody. There's if you can train Monday through Thursday, one of those days, we're open. So um, yeah, I mean I typically like to have somebody, if you're just starting out, you're going to need to be in there as much as possible. Wrestling is one of those things that, it gives you what you put in, type of thing. So the more you're able to kind of, you know, put time in, the easier it
sure.
is for you to, kind of get what you want out of it.
Well, and really, I think a lot like training for any job, because marketing towards salespeople. A lot of times when you take a sales job and you come into a different place, or heck, even video editing, there's a different format, there's a different style. When I
Yes.
went from doing sports radio to doing straight news, I had to basically relearn my style of doing interviews and how I was putting stories together. Can't scream at people on ABC station like you can on
Sure.
sports radio. But wrestling, you come in with an amateur wrestling background, you really have to unlearn what you were doing. You can use some of the moves, you can use some of the muscle memory, I guess, but it's a totally different mindset than amateur wrestler, which I think Scott Tyler, one of the
Mhm.
young guys, he came in from an amateur background and he's doing a great job in his first year of wrestling.
Yeah, yeah. Amateur wrestling is interesting because I think that most people that get into it, and especially that get into it at a like a younger age, probably get into it with the mindset of pro wrestling, at least somewhere in their brain.
I know I did. That was my
Yeah,
motivation.
yeah. There's kind of like there's an interesting overlap there, and then once you get into amateur wrestling, you realize how different it is from
Hmm.
pro wrestling, and a lot of people fall in love with like that aspect of it. Um, but it does, if you try to like come out of amateur wrestling and into pro wrestling, there are some things that you do have to relearn. And yeah, he's done a great job. I mean, I couldn't be more proud of him. And um, I think he's like undefeated at CSW, isn't he? Like he hasn't lost a match yet. So
Yeah, and he's making a fan of Roscoe Leach, it seems. So
yes,
I
which
don't know if that's good or bad,
yeah,
but
I don't
it
know either.
looks like he's building a little bit of a support system there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds.
And then just one more quick match coming up. It's title versus title. The Monarch Jeremy Wyatt against the Mile High Magnum Dak Draper, and you can see him on the NWA right now, teaming up with Mims. So getting a little national TV exposure, but they're going to unify the titles because right now you have the DWF title and the CSW title. Any sides in that match? A couple of
Oh,
NWL
definitely.
veterans.
Oh, definitely have a side in that match. Dak Draper has been both one of my best friends and one of my worst adversaries. We came up together in Colorado, so I mean, our rivalry goes way, way back. But even in NWL, we found each other. We were crossing each other's paths quite a bit, having good matches and stuff. So I am definitely pulling for Dak Draper in that match. Dak is a guy that, as his friend, I can attest to how hard he works. It is not a gimmick. It is not it's not just something he puts on Instagram. That guy is grinding 24/7. And the attention that he's gotten is so well deserved. And it's time that, like, on a national level, people understand how gifted and how talented he is. And so, for him to walk around as a belt collector, I feel like is only par for the course. Like,
Hmm.
that's who this guy is. He's beyond talented, and honestly, I think it's a travesty that more people don't know who Dak Draper is.
Well, hopefully he'll get his breakout here this year between the NWA, Ring of Honor. Who knows? Maybe even a little AEW exposure.
Yeah,
They're going to expand their programming, so
yeah,
there's
it's
more
time.
opportunities.
Yeah, it's time for sure. Dak Draper's the man.
Kind of winding it down, but I did want to ask. It's got to be a great benefit to have a full-time job that also allows you the ability to do pro wrestling on a high level.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's like a huge. I don't even know. I don't think I could have ever got back into a job that didn't allow for me to kind of pursue wrestling, especially after NWL. That's when things really like sunk in that this is a part of who I am. I mean, it's a huge part of who I am. So everything I do has to make room for pro wrestling, whether it's my family, relationships, job. It doesn't matter. Like, pro wrestling is who I am and what I am. So, um, being a video editor is definitely a benefit.
And it's it's a very different job because it's timing and discipline. So definitely have a
Yes.
little bit of two different sides at work at once. Hey, kind of wind it down here. We'll go to the championship round. Got the dealership rescue belt here. I don't have the CSW tag team belts yet, but the Holletts, the tribe, gets to be the dealership rescue
Oh,
wrestling with
awesome.
sales champion for the week.
I love
Just
it.
a few quick questions.
Yeah.
What was it like having a feud with the Mad King himself, Eddie Kingston?
Uh, Very eye opening. Very eye opening. He's just an immensely talented person. He's he's got so much talent, and I think that people over the last few years have really been able to see um, how talented he is. When he was at NWL, AEW didn't exist, so just getting to, like, be in his orbit a little bit and kind of like feed off of him and listen to the things that he was saying promo wise, getting to be with him in the ring, all that stuff. I just knew that if he ever got on TV, it would be off to the races. And a few years later, he was on TV and literally changing the game. So, yeah, I mean, Eddie Kingston is phenomenal.
Great. And where do you see CSW at in a year now that it's had a few months to basically relaunch?
I think CSW will continue to be a staple in Kansas City pro wrestling. When I think that we are going to start to change um, the narrative of, like, oh, those old days of pro wrestling are gone. Where I think some of those older fans, some of those people that enjoy that kind of vintage style of wrestling, um, will start to see that CSW is checking those boxes and checking off a
Hmm.
lot of other boxes as well. So I think that I think we're just going to continue to become a staple here.
Dream opponent moving forward.
Mm. I always say Samoa Joe, and I think it's getting a little out of reach at this point. It was really like behind the scenes a little bit. I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but it was really close at NWL.
Mm,
Um, right before he got signed, there was like a time where there was conversations with him and Chris Goff and Major, and they were going to come in and have him be the guy. But Samoa Joe would be great. I'd love to wrestle Jacob Fatu. Um, Tankman would be awesome. Just kind of that big guy vibe is kind of what I'm after right now.
sure. Those would all be good. And hey, you can find a lot of the NWL stuff on YouTube. I was talking with Mojo last week, and we talked about the growth of wrestling on YouTube. You can really go down the rabbit hole, and there are a lot of great territories, a lot of great matches. And Hoodie, thanks a lot for taking the time to step
Yeah.
into the ring. It is coming up here in just just about a week from when this airs. CSW Coronation, the Tribe hops in the ring against Jabari King and Matt Kenway Saturday, June 24th. You can see it at the Lenexa National Guard Armory. And I'll be sponsoring. I don't know who the opponent is yet, but we are sponsoring our friend Shaza McKenzie, the Heartbreak Corps. She's coming back into Kansas City, making America her home now from Australia. So she'll be part of the card. And then the main event, Jeremy Wyatt against the Mile High Magnum, Dak Draper unifying the title. So a lot of stuff going on. And of course, the tribe will be a big part of it. Hoodie, thanks for stepping into the ring. Really enjoyed getting a chance to talk.
Hey, thank you so much. And yeah, I'd love to. Anytime you want me back, just hit me up. I had a
Absolutely.
great time.
Hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate